Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Tuesday. This is Seattle Now. Artificial intelligence is listening to emergency callers along with 911 dispatchers in Seattle. The technology is supposed to make emergency calls more efficient, but its effectiveness is unclear, and legal experts have concerns. Seattle Times reporter Dan Beekman is here to tell us more. But first, let's get you caught up. The short-lived heat wave is over after temperatures spiked into the high 80s on Monday. Keep that water bottle handy. It's going to be pretty warm for the next few days. The National Weather Service predicts highs will be in the mid-70s today and tomorrow. We could be back into the low 80s by Friday. The weather seems perfect for a swim, but you really need to be careful. If you're out on the water, wear a flotation device. King County officials are warning lakes and rivers are still very cold right now, and that is especially dangerous, even for strong swimmers. Also, check your beach. There have been closures in Seattle. Matthews and Mount Baker beaches are dealing with high levels of bacteria in the water. Same for Enetai Beach in Bellevue. And Horizon Air flight attendants plan to demonstrate today outside company headquarters in SeaTac. Unionized workers have been negotiating a contract for months, seeking higher pay and better benefits. We could learn today if Horizon flight attendants could go on strike in the future. The demonstration begins at 11:30 this morning. We're back with more headlines on tonight's episode of Seattle Now. 911 emergency dispatchers at the Seattle Fire Department listen and direct calls from people during their most vulnerable moments. Since late 2023, artificial intelligence has been listening as well, analyzing the calls. In some cases, the AI will prompt emergency dispatchers to send the caller to a nurse line in Texas. Legal experts are concerned about transparency, privacy, and accountability. Seattle Times reporter Daniel Beekman is here to tell us more. Dan, thanks for your reporting. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So how does this work?
The way it works is if you have a medical emergency that you need to call 911 for, you call 911 in Seattle. It goes to an initial dispatcher, and if it's a police matter, they'll send you to the Seattle Police Department. If it's a medical emergency or a fire, they'll send you to the fire department. And the fire department has its call center. Your call goes and gets picked up by a fire department dispatcher, and they start asking you questions. And the way it used to work is that the fire department dispatcher would listen to what you had to say and decide that you needed firefighters at your door immediately or an ambulance pretty quick, or maybe they would think you don't really have any problem at all. Now the way it works is there is an additional entity listening, which is this AI technology brought to Seattle by a Danish-based company called Corti, C-O-R-T-I. And it's listening to what you and the dispatcher are saying. And since December of 2023, if it thinks that you are a good candidate to be sent to talk to a nurse instead of getting an ambulance right away or firefighters right away, it will send a pop-up message to that fire department dispatcher saying, this is a good person to send to the nurse line.
And we should be clear for listeners that the calls that go to the nurse line are considered lower-level non-emergencies on some level. Anybody who was having a heart attack or a stroke symptom gets an ambulance.
Yes, theoretically.
Why did the Seattle Fire Department start using AI assistants?
Before the pandemic even, the Seattle Fire Department started engaging with this company. It was a startup from Denmark, and the company had been experimenting there in that European country with using its voice analyzing AI technology to do things like see how quickly and accurately it could determine if someone was having a stroke or cardiac arrest over the phone. And there were some early studies showing that actually it was pretty good and pretty quick at identifying those things, although maybe with more false positives than a human dispatcher would. And time means everything in the 911 emergency medical response world. And so the fire department was interested in that. And they and this company decided to form a relationship where the fire department would allow the company to listen to Seattle calls, to train its AI technology and try to get better at listening and analyzing it, sort of with the idea that there could be benefits down the road.
Why are we just finding out about this now?
I mean, it's a little bit unclear. I think the simple answer is that the fire department felt like this was something that they start as a pilot project as sort of testing, and then it sort of evolved over time. And there was no one point in time where they were required to necessarily, or where they thought we need to bring this to the public or to the city council. I think that has to do partly maybe with the fact that they started working with this AI company so many years ago that it was before AI blew up into sort of public consciousness. And to try to give the fire department some credit, it's not as if they started this program a year ago when every headline was about the dangers of AI. Now, that doesn't mean that they still shouldn't have run it through some kind of public review necessarily years ago, but I think that's part of the picture.
Wouldn't this kind of change normally go through a public process? It's a surprise to me that if I call 911, there is an artificial intelligence listening to that call.
An interesting thing is it's not as if, as far as I can tell, that the city broke some law or possibly even an internal policy by not running this through the city council or through some public hearing. And that's because there is no law, there is no policy in the city of Seattle that says if a department is going to implement a new AI technology, you must do X, Y, or Z that's special. The closest thing to that is that the city has a surveillance ordinance since 2018 that says if you're a city agency, usually the police department, that you're going to implement something considered to be a surveillance technology, that has to go through a special process. And I did talk to some experts who question why maybe this wasn't scrutinized through that lens. But in terms of AI specifically, there's nothing like that at this point.
It's a little bit of the wild, wild west right now with this kind of technology getting ahead of maybe regulations that may be in place years from now. You know, the U.S. has strong privacy protections around health information. What kind of concerns are you hearing about?
I think the real concern from a privacy perspective would, one, be the consent and transparency from the experts I talked to, and also the possibility that your data, medical or otherwise, divulged in 911 calls, if the company involved was sharing that elsewhere or using that data to inform its AI modeling for other customers. Now, they and the city say that their data sharing agreement bars the company from using Seattle callers' data for anything other than what it's doing in Seattle. The company can use my data if I call 911 with a medical emergency to make its AI for Seattle Fire Department better, but it can't use my data to make its technology for the Pittsburgh Fire Department better.
So it's a closed loop in that way. It's supposed to stay here in the city.
Yes.
In your reporting, you said the Seattle Fire Department pays Cordy $260,000 annually. Is there anything else Cordy is getting out of the deal?
There's definitely a marketing advantage that they're getting out of this. This was something interesting because when I started asking about what was going on with this technology in 911 calls in Seattle, I didn't initially get a lot of information from the fire department, but this company has been talking about this in their press releases for many years, pointing to basically Seattle as the proof that they can work in the U.S. and using it to sort of help leverage their entry into the U.S. market and get more business. So, that aspect I think has been helpful to them.
What did the Seattle Fire Department tell you about how well this technology is working? Because the goal sounds laudable, right? We would all like our 911 calls to be dispatched efficiently and as quickly as possible.
In terms of these live AI prompts of when callers should go to this nurse line, they don't really have information that they were able to share to me on how that's improving patient outcomes or not. There was some information that the fire department's medical director shared at a conference last year where he said that he felt like turning on these live prompts had resulted in a significant increase in the number of 911 calls being diverted to this nurse line, and he seemed happy about that. But again, it's not clear how they're measuring at all or what that means for actually people getting the care they need.
And we all know AI can be wrong. Has this caused any problems in getting people the care they need?
Totally unclear. The experts I talked to said this just raises questions for them. If you have AI nudging dispatchers to send people to this nurse line, and then the nurse line itself is operating out of the normal oversight and accountability safeguards that the fire department would otherwise have in place for ambulance responses, et cetera. There are multiple things going on that we don't really know how they're affecting patients.
How widespread is AI in emergency medical response in general?
It's starting to become a much bigger deal. Like right now, just in the last couple months, there's been announcements that Kitsap County and Snohomish County here locally have partnered with actually a Seattle-based AI company called Aurelian to launch non-emergency lines fully staffed by AI agents. So in Kitsap and Snohomish now, if you have something to call about that you think is a problem, but not quite the level of a 911 emergency, you call a certain line and you speak to an AI robot.
Is that effective? Because sometimes it's hard to get the emergency line to pick up if you're calling in Seattle.
The idea behind it is that, yeah, there are staffing issues, and you'd rather have an AI agent actually give you information that you need if it can do that quickly than wait on hold for a real person. That's the idea behind it. What makes the Seattle issue different is that this is not an emergency line. The AI prompts are prompting Seattle dispatchers to send people to a lower level nurse line, but the people who are calling 911, and AI is involved in that. I wasn't able to find a lot of other examples of that in the United States. So definitely the fire department is at least among the first to start using AI in some way in live 911 emergency calls.
Dan, it was certainly surprising to me that this was happening. Who's paying attention with some power to change anything here?
I asked Mayor Katie Wilson's office about this. They didn't offer any comment specifically about the fire department's use of AI in live 911 calls. What they said was they came into office earlier this year. They're trying to do sort of a comprehensive review of how city agencies are using AI and take a hard look at each case, whether the city should keep doing that or not, and also try to build up a framework. I don't know exactly what it'll look like, but I could imagine the city's website where residents can go and see, and there's some more transparency about here's what's going on, because that doesn't exist like for this program today. You just wouldn't know. I also asked City Council member Bob Kettle, who chairs the Public Safety Committee on the council, about this. He didn't know about it. He said he would have to do some due diligence before he said anything.
What questions are you still looking to answer, Dan?
One thing that's interesting as a forward-looking piece that came up is when I was interviewing the fire department about this and asking them about sort of transparency, they said, well, we are going to be sort of more transparent on AI moving forward. And by the way, we actually are about to roll out, we hope to roll out AI note-taking for firefighters in the field, like on the scene of emergencies. And again, like, I don't know that that's something that most Seattle residents will have a problem with. Maybe some will, maybe some won't. It's pretty common now to go to your doctor and have them record the conversation using AI to take notes. But now the fire department says that they will put that through some kind of city public review process before it actually is happening on the street.
Really interesting. We are really at a point where transparency feels very important with artificial intelligence and the way it seems to be showing up in our lives.
That's I think the motivation behind this reporting to a large extent is, hey, you might not know about this. Let's tell you.
Yeah. Seattle Times reporter Daniel Beekman, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Seattle Now. Take a moment to rate and review the show in your favorite podcast app or share this episode with a friend. Today's episode was produced by Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers. It was edited by Andy Hurst. Our production team also includes Vaughn Jones, Caroline Chamberlain Gomez, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. Talk to you tonight for Evening Headlines.